I would do anything for you. These 5 words just destroyed yet another relationship. The man who said them doesn't understand why she is pulling further and further away, why the conversations are drying up, why the affection has disappeared. He offered everything, his schedule, his dreams, his identity, and in return received coldness and contempt. But here's the brutal truth no one tells you: when a man says those words, he's not expressing love. He's signing his own emotional death sentence. The psychology behind this dynamic is darker than you imagine. There are specific phrases that make a woman completely lose interest in a man, not out of malice, but due to an unconscious mechanism she doesn't even realize she's triggering. These words set off primitive alarms in the female brain, signals that the man lacks the emotional strength needed to be a reliable partner. But why exactly do these expressions of love create the opposite effect? Why does showing total availability turn into repulsion? The answer is buried in millions of years of evolution, and once you uncover it, you'll understand why so many relationships fail in the first few months. For decades, men have been conditioned to believe that being kind, helpful, and submissive were romantic virtues. Treat her like a queen, make her feel special, show her she's your priority. These pieces of advice have destroyed more love lives than any betrayal. The reality is that when a man puts a woman on a pedestal, she automatically looks down and sees a man smaller than herself. The problem isn't kindness itself, but the subliminal message those actions convey. When you say, "I would change everything for you," or "you are more important than my goals," you're communicating that you have no self-worth, that you need her approval to feel complete. And here lies the cruel paradox: the more you show emotional neediness, the less she feels the need for you. Imagine working for years building a career, developing hobbies, creating a solid social circle, only to throw it all away at the first sign of female interest. Thousands of men do this daily, turning themselves into diluted versions of who they were, and then wonder why she lost interest. The anger you feel when you realize you were lied to about what really attracts a woman is only the beginning. The most dangerous phrases aren't direct declarations of love. They're the small daily submissions that erode your position in the relationship dynamic. What do you want to do today? You decide. Sorry for having my own opinion. Each of these expressions is a small death of attraction. They communicate that you have no direction of your own, that your existence revolves around her whims. But something even more sinister is happening behind the scenes. While you're busy being the perfect man, she is unconsciously testing your limits in ways you don't even imagine. These tests aren't a conspiracy. They're primitive instincts that will determine whether you deserve respect or contempt. Biology doesn't lie. Neuroscience studies show that the female brain responds differently to men who demonstrate independence versus those who show emotional dependence. The release of dopamine and oxytocin, the chemicals of love and attraction, drops drastically when it detects signs of male weakness. It's not cruelty, it's survival. That's why the woman who seemed interested on the first date turns cold after you sent dozens of sweet messages. That's why she loses interest when you cancel your plans to be available. That's why the harder you try, the worse it gets. You're fighting against millions of years of genetic programming with completely wrong strategies. The most devastating part is that many men interpret this coldness as a signal to try even harder. They send flowers, write long letters, make public declarations, digging even deeper into their own emotional grave. Every desperate gesture confirms to her that she made the right choice by pulling away. But what if I told you there's one specific phrase, a single expression that can completely reverse this dynamic? A response that makes her interest resurface instantly, no matter how cold she's become? The truth about female attraction goes against everything society teaches. It's not about being handsome, rich, or charming. It's about communicating through words and actions that you are a man with options, with your own purpose, with the ability to say no when necessary. It's about showing that your happiness doesn't depend on her approval. If you're recognizing patterns in your own life, if you're starting to connect the dots between your words and the reactions you get, then you're ready to discover not only what you should never say, but mainly how to communicate in a way that sparks genuine interest instead of pity. If you're enjoying finally understanding the real psychology behind these dynamics, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to discover the specific strategies that can completely transform your relationships. Because what you don't yet know is that there's an invisible hierarchy in every relationship, established in the very first interactions, and whoever takes the lower position rarely manages to reverse that dynamic. But when it does happen, the transformation is so dramatic it feels like magic. The invisible hierarchy I mentioned is established through micro-interactions that go unnoticed by most men. Every time you ask, "Where do you want to go for dinner?" instead of suggesting a place, you go down a step. Every time you change your plans because she changed hers, you give up emotional territory. Every unnecessary sorry is a small surrender she registers unconsciously. What's fascinating is that this hierarchy has nothing to do with aggressive dominance or toxic masculinity. It has to do with emotional leadership, the ability to make decisions, maintain direction, and not be shaken by approval or disapproval. Women are attracted to men who demonstrate this emotional stability, not because they want to be controlled, but because they want to feel safe next to someone who doesn't fall apart at the first difficulty. Why exactly do these expressions of total love generate repulsion? The answer lies in the evolutionary concept of reproductive value. For millions of years, women developed mechanisms to identify partners capable of protecting and providing for a family. A man who abandons his own goals, who has no clear boundaries, who becomes completely malleable signals instability and genetic weakness. Modern society has created a generation of men programmed for romantic failure. From childhood, we were taught that being sensitive and understanding would make us irresistible. Discovering that this social programming is a lie that sabotaged years of your life generates a visceral anger against everyone who perpetuated this farce. The unconscious tests begin subtly. She shows up late without warning. She's testing if you'll accept disrespect or set boundaries. She makes an unfair criticism about something important to you. She wants to see if you'll defend your convictions or bow down to avoid conflict. She suggests plans that cost you your time and money without reciprocity. She's measuring whether you have self-discipline or are easily manipulated. Most men fail these tests miserably because they don't even realize they're happening. They interpret them as opportunities to show understanding and flexibility, when in reality they're character evaluations. Every failed test confirms to her that you lack the emotional strength necessary to be a reliable long-term partner. Here's the first unexpected twist. She's not doing these tests consciously. There isn't a secret meeting where women decide how to test men. These behaviors are instinctive, programmed by millions of years of natural selection. She genuinely doesn't understand why she loses interest in nice men. She just feels that something is missing. The neurological mechanism behind this is brutally simple. When you demonstrate excessive neediness, you activate in her brain the same circuits used to evaluate children or dependent people. Maternal love and sexual attraction are neurologically incompatible. That's why women often say about submissive ex-boyfriends, "He's a wonderful person, but I don't feel anything for him anymore." Many women have also been programmed by modern society to believe they want completely submissive men. Consciously, they claim to want partners who listen, who put them first, who are sensitive to feelings. But unconsciously, they completely lose interest when they find exactly that. The specific response that can reverse this dynamic is surprisingly simple: no. A word most modern men have completely lost the ability to use in romantic contexts. No when she suggests something that goes against your values. No when she tries to change your important plans. No when she acts disrespectfully. Every well-placed no re-establishes your position in the hierarchy. But here's the danger: men discovering this information often make the opposite mistake, becoming artificially tough or aggressive. This also fails because it isn't authentic. The power of no comes from its legitimacy. You can only say no convincingly when you truly have something to lose, when you genuinely have options. The concept of tests extends far beyond obvious behaviors. She tests through emotional drama, creating small problems to see if you keep composure or get shaken. She tests through jealousy, mentioning other men to measure your reaction. She tests through sudden mood swings, observing whether you try to fix her or maintain your own emotional stability. The tragedy is that men interpret these tests as problems to be solved. They spend energy trying to eliminate the drama, control the jealousy, stabilize her moods. They don't realize that the test isn't about solving, it's about how you react. She doesn't want you to fix her emotional problems. She wants to see if you have enough strength not to be contaminated by them. Modern neuroscience confirms that female sexual attraction is triggered by signals of high testosterone and low cortisol, confidence without stress. Men who constantly seek approval maintain extremely high levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Biologically, it is impossible to be attractive in this state. That's why seduction techniques based on tricks and manipulation fail in the long run. You may deceive her instincts temporarily, but you can't sustain a false persona indefinitely. The only strategy that works consistently is to genuinely develop the traits that trigger natural attraction: emotional independence, clear purpose, leadership ability, and above all, the ability to live well on your own. The transformation that happens when a man finally understands and applies these principles is so dramatic that women around him literally cannot explain what changed. They feel a different energy, a presence they cannot put into words. Because he stopped seeking external validation and began validating himself internally. Let's dissect the exact moment when this change happens. Imagine a man who always said yes to everything. Suddenly, when she suggests canceling an important commitment of his to accompany her friends to the mall, he calmly replies, "No, I've had this commitment for weeks. You can go with your friends another time." Her reaction is instant and visceral: surprise, then respect, then a renewed attraction she cannot control. But here's what is really happening neurologically in that moment. Her brain, accustomed to automatic submission, suddenly encounters resistance. This triggers a cascade of neurotransmitters: dopamine from the novelty, noradrenaline from the emotional tension, and most importantly, oxytocin from the feeling of safety that comes from being with someone who has clear boundaries. The devastating power of the words that destroy relationships finally reveals itself completely. It's not just the obvious phrases like, "I'd do anything for you." It's the hundreds of daily micro-submissions: "Whatever you want, doesn't matter, you decide, sorry for having an opinion." Each of these expressions is a small death of attraction, an incremental surrender of your perceived value. The specific phrase that resurrects dead interest is not no by itself. It's no because. Followed by a legitimate reason based on your own values and goals. No because I have a commitment with myself. No because that goes against my principles. No because my time also has value. The difference lies in legitimacy. You must truly have something to lose. Now comes the most disturbing revelation of all. Most relationships fail not because people are incompatible, but because one partner, usually the man, completely abdicates his personality to avoid any possibility of conflict. They deliberately destroy everything that made them interesting in the first place. How many years of your life have you lost being a diluted version of yourself? How many promising relationships did you sabotage by trying to be the perfect boyfriend? The pain of realizing all the wasted time, all the lost opportunities from following completely wrong advice about how to attract women, is devastating. The cruelty of human nature manifests brutally here. The more a man sacrifices for a woman, the less she values him. The more he gives up his dreams to fulfill hers, the less she respects him. The more available he becomes, the less special she feels for having him. It's a paradox that destroys millions of relationships every year. Women are not consciously cruel in reacting this way. They are following deep evolutionary impulses that say, "A man who doesn't value himself cannot protect me or provide for our children." Even in modern contexts where physical protection and material provision are less relevant, these instincts continue to operate at the subconscious level. That's why strategies like open communication about feelings often make men lose even more attraction. When you sit down to talk about the relationship and expose all your insecurities, fears, and emotional needs, you are inadvertently communicating mental instability. She doesn't want to be your therapist. The solution is not to become emotionally closed off or cold. It's to develop genuine emotional stability, the ability to process your own feelings internally, to seek fulfillment through your personal goals, to maintain balance without depending on her validation. That is infinitely more attractive than performative vulnerability. The moment when everything clicks is when you realize that the best version of yourself for a relationship is exactly the same version you would be if you were single and happy. There is no you in the relationship versus you single. There is only you, with your goals, values, boundaries, and personality intact. Healthy relationships happen when two complete people come together by choice, not by need. When you need a relationship to feel complete, you unconsciously communicate that you are incomplete. When you want a relationship because your life is already good but could be even better shared, you communicate abundance and options. The difference between these two states of mind is the difference between attraction and repulsion, between respect and contempt, between a relationship that strengthens over time and one that withers until it dies. The choice is yours, but first you must undo years of social conditioning that programmed you to fail. Because now you know the truth society hides. Loving someone does not mean erasing yourself for them. It means being such a strong and complete version of yourself that your presence elevates her life, not because you sacrifice yourself, but because you add genuine value simply by being who you truly are. The journey back to your true personality begins with a radical decision: to completely stop trying to impress women. This doesn't mean being rude or indifferent. It means focusing all your energy on building a life you genuinely love, independent of female approval. When you make this shift, something extraordinary happens. Women start gravitating naturally toward you. The first practical step is a complete audit of your communication. Eliminate these phrases entirely from your vocabulary. Whatever you want, doesn't matter, sorry for bothering you, you decide. It's okay if you don't want to. Replace them with clear statements: I prefer this, my opinion is this, my plan is this, I will do it this way. The change in people's reactions is immediate and dramatic. For the first time in years, you glimpse the real possibility of having relationships based on mutual respect, not unilateral sacrifice. The hope of finally finding someone who loves you for the person you truly are, not the domesticated version you created to please, is emotionally overwhelming. The central paradox of modern relationships resolves when you understand that true love requires two whole people. An incomplete person trying to complete themselves through another creates dependence, not love. Two complete people choosing to share their lives create genuine partnership. The difference in the quality of the resulting relationship is striking. Here is the specific strategy to rebuild your position in existing relationships that have already been damaged by the submission dynamic. First, immediately stop all approval-seeking behaviors. No dramatic explanations, no conversations about changes, just stop. Second, resume activities and goals you abandoned. Third, practice saying no in small situations before applying it in important contexts. The resistance you will face will be intense. Women accustomed to your submission will test you even more aggressively when they notice the change. They will accuse you of having changed, of not caring anymore, of being selfish. This resistance is actually confirmation that you are on the right path. They are trying to restore the old dynamic where they controlled you through emotional guilt. But here's what really happens behind the scenes during this transition period. While she consciously complains about your new attitude, unconsciously she is feeling something she hasn't felt in a long time: curiosity about you. When you stop being predictable, always available, and reacting to her emotional provocations, you become interesting again. The full transformation takes approximately 90 days of absolute consistency. During this period, you will face moments of weakness where you are tempted to revert to old patterns, especially when she uses emotional tactics to restore control. Resisting these moments is crucial. Each time you maintain your boundaries during one of her emotional storms, your position strengthens exponentially. The most common mistake men make during this transition is trying to explain their changes. They want to justify why they are acting differently, educate about relationship dynamics, prove they are right. This completely destroys the effect. Authentic changes don't need explanation. They manifest through consistent actions, not words. The most powerful moral lesson emerges when you realize that this journey was never really about women. It was about reclaiming your own identity, your own values, your own direction in life. Healthy relationships are a natural consequence of healthy people. When you fix your relationship with yourself, all other relationships adjust automatically. Women of genuine value, those who truly deserve your time and energy, respond positively when you demonstrate strength of character. They don't want to control you, they want to be inspired by you. They don't want you to abandon your dreams, they want to be part of the journey toward them. They don't want submission, they want partnership with someone who adds value to their lives. On the other hand, women who aggressively resist your changes, who intensify emotional manipulation when you set boundaries, who issue ultimatums about your new personality, are revealing their true nature. They were never interested in you as a person, they were interested in you as a controllable resource. The difference between these two types becomes crystal clear when you stop trying to please indiscriminately. Genuine women celebrate your personal growth and emotional independence. Manipulators fight against these qualities because they lose power over you. This distinction alone can save years of your life in toxic relationships. The concept of mental abundance is crucial for maintaining these changes long-term. Abundance doesn't mean having multiple active romantic options. It means knowing you have enough value to attract quality people when necessary. This internal confidence eliminates the need to cling desperately to any female interest that appears. Men with an abundance mindset don't chase, don't beg, don't sacrifice fundamental values for approval. They present who they are authentically and allow women to decide if they want to be part of that journey. This approach automatically filters incompatible people and attracts those genuinely interested in the real person, not a performative version created to impress. The final irony is that when you completely stop trying to win over women and focus on building the best version of yourself, you naturally become more attractive than 90% of men on the market. Because most continue operating with strategies that are guaranteed to fail, trying to buy love through sacrifice, seeking validation through submission. Your love life transforms when you understand that you don't need any specific woman, but you could want one who genuinely complements your journey. This shift from need to preference completely changes the dynamic of any romantic interaction. You negotiate from a position of strength, not desperation. If you've made it this far and are feeling a mix of anger over lost time and hope for a possible future, you're exactly where you need to be to start this transformation. Subscribe to the channel to follow specific strategies that will accelerate your journey back to authenticity and genuinely fulfilling relationships.